Looks like our crowd's down a little bit, but it's good to see you who are here. Let's open our service with a word of prayer. Paul, would you lead us in prayer, please? Turn to number 418. I know whom I have believed. 418, we'll sing the first, second, third, and last verses. I know not why God's wondrous grace to me hath made known, nor why unworthy Christ in love redeemed me for his own. But I know whom I have believed, and am persuaded that he is able to keep that which I've committed unto him against that day. I know not how this saving faith to me did impart, nor how believing in his word brought peace within my heart. But I know whom I have believed, and am persuaded that he is able to keep that which I've committed unto him against that day. I know not how the Spirit moves, convincing men of sin, revealing Jesus through the Word, creating faith in him. But I know whom I have believed, and am persuaded that he is able to keep that which I've committed unto him against that day. I know not when my Lord may come, at night or noonday fair, nor if I walk the vale with him, or meet him in the air. But I know whom I have believed, and am persuaded that he is able to keep that which I've committed unto him against that day. All right, turn over to number 672, Sweet By and By. 672. There's a land that is fairer than day, and by faith we can see it afar, for the Father waits over the way to prepare us a dwelling place there, in the sweet by and by we shall meet on that beautiful shore. In the sweet by and by we shall meet on that beautiful shore. We shall sing on that beautiful shore the melodious songs of the blessed, and our spirit shall sorrow no more, not a sigh for the blessing of rest. In the sweet by and by we shall meet on that beautiful shore. In the sweet by and by
shall meet on that beautiful shore. To our bountiful Father above, we will offer our tribute of praise for the glorious gift of His love and the blessing that hallow our days. In the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore. In the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore.
In stormy banks, 634 will stand, sing the first, second, and last verses. Remain standing for prayer. Let's stand, please.
On Jordan's stormy banks I stand and cast a wishful eye to Canaan's fair and happy land, where my possessions lie. I am bound for the promised land. I am bound for the promised land. Oh, who will come and go with me? I am bound for the promised land. All o'er those wide extended plains shines one eternal day. There God the Son forever reigns and scatters night away. I am bound for the promised land. I am bound for the promised land. Oh, who will come and go with me? I am bound for the promised land. When shall I reach that happy place and be forever blessed? When shall I see my Father's face and in His bosom rest? I am bound for the promised land. I am bound for the promised land. Oh, who will come and go with me? I am bound for the promised land. Shevin, would you lead us in prayer?
Holy Spirit, we ask that you give me the Holy Spirit, and we ask that you give me the Holy Spirit, and we ask that you give me the Holy Spirit, and we ask that you give me the Holy Spirit, and we ask that you give me the Holy Spirit, and we ask that you give me the Holy Spirit, and we ask that you give me the Holy Spirit, and we ask that you give me the Holy Spirit, and we ask that you give me the Holy Spirit, and we ask that you give me the Holy Spirit, and we ask that you give me the Holy Spirit, and we ask that you give me the Holy Spirit, and we ask that you give me the Holy Spirit, and we ask that you give me the Holy Spirit, and we ask that you give me the Holy Spirit, and we ask that you give me the Holy Spirit, and we ask that you give me the Holy Spirit, and we ask that you give me the Holy Spirit, and we ask that you give me the Holy Spirit, and we ask that you give me the Holy Spirit, and we ask that you give me the Holy Spirit, and we ask that you give me the Holy Spirit, and we ask that you give me the Holy Spirit, and we ask
Good evening. This evening we'll be in Genesis 35. We'll be looking at the first 10 verses. Beginning there in verse 1, God said unto Jacob, Arise, go up to Bethel, and dwell there, and make there an altar unto God, that appeared unto thee when thou fleddest from the face of Esau thy brother. Then Jacob said unto his household, and to all that were with him, Put away the strange gods that are among you, and be clean, and change your garments. Let us arise and go up to Bethel, and I will make there an altar unto God, who answered me in the day of my distress, and was with me in the way which I went. And they gave unto Jacob all the strange gods which were in their hand, and all their earrings which were in their ears, and Jacob hid them under the oak which was by Shechem. And they journeyed, and the terror of God was upon the cities that were round about them, and they did not pursue after the sons of Jacob. So Jacob came to Luz, which is in the land of Canaan, that is Bethel, he and all the people that were with him. And he built there an altar, and called the place El Bethel, because there God appeared unto him when he fled from the face of his brother. But Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died, and she was buried beneath Bethel under an oak, and the name of it was called Allon Bacuth. And God appeared unto Jacob again when he came out of Padan Aram, and blessed him. And God said unto him, Thy name is Jacob. Thy name shall not be called any more Jacob, but Israel shall be thy name. And he called his name Israel. As we look at verse 1, God called Jacob back to where really everything began regarding his relationship with God. And to Jacob, Bethel was more than soil, scenery, and stones. It was both sentimental and it was spiritual. It was a place that he had first come to know the Lord, to know Yahweh, in a very personal and intimate way. Now, all of us have our Bethels. For some of us, it's where we accepted Jesus Christ as our personal Savior. We also may have smaller Bethels in our lives. Those times maybe when we were aware or awakened to a more meaningful relationship with God. Places that we realized that maybe we weren't recognizing His Lordship in every area or every facet of our lives, and we go back to the altar, or we come to a place where we nail some things down, you might say, in our relationship with Him. Whatever Jacob may have known about God before his Bethel experience, we really don't know. We can be pretty certain, I think, though, that this was maybe the dearest place on earth to Jacob. This was his home church, if you would. This is where, if he would experience homecoming spiritually in his life, this was where Jacob wanted to go back to. He entered into a relationship with the Lord there, even though his life was overshadowed by sin and disobedience. This kind of remained his home base. This kind of remained his moment of inspiration that sent him forth pursuing a real relationship with God. And now God wanted Jacob to follow up his experienced by the brook Jabbok with a time of maybe rededication. He called on him to go back to the place where it all started. Our text really doesn't tell us that God commanded him to do it, but Jacob took his entire household with him. He commanded them to put away their idols, their strange gods that they'd become attached to during the days in Haran. He's the one that told them to purify themselves, to put on fresh clothes, and I guess that was a symbol of maybe a new spiritual beginning for them too. But we don't find those details in God calling Jacob to go back there. These are things that it seems that Jacob came up with on his own. I don't know how Jacob felt when they handed him the various pieces of jewelry, gold jewelry, that represented their dedication to pagan gods and to pagan practices. He hid them, probably most likely never went back to recover them. We don't ever find anything that would tell us that he did. But I think that we can find some pretty good lessons in this particular event in Jacob's life. And I think the first one is very simple. All of us need times of starting over, of fresh beginning. I think probably, to be honest, if we were all honest, we would agree that our culture, even the church today, Christians today, are too intermeshed with the world. We hold on to things, and things that maybe we shouldn't, superficial things that the world offers. And even though we've surrendered to Jesus, and even though our dedication to Him has begun, it's far from complete. We don't bow down to gods as the pagans did. We don't often imitate their value system and the way that we live our lives, but still we're encumbered, if you would, with the things of this world. Technically, we can't rededicate something that's once been dedicated. We can reaffirm or reconfirm our dedication and our loyalty to God. We can ask God to help us make a fresh start, or to at least do better today than we did yesterday. We can tell Him once more that we love Him, that we desire to lead our families into a closer fellowship with Him. I think that's kind of symbolic of what Jacob was doing here. He wasn't just speaking for himself. He was speaking for his family, for his servants, when you think of his household. So I think that it reminds us that all of us need those times of refreshing, of revival, of recommitment. And then secondly, I think that we see that once we start a genuine walk with God, that time of beginning, or that initial step, is something we never forget. Once we've been delivered from sin, we never forget the deliverance that we've experienced and the renewal of life that we enjoy. The doctrine that we see here of God providing and caring for His child, even maybe when he's wayward, we see it often in Jacob's life. And Jacob maybe had taken that for granted a lot. And this time of recommitment was a time for him to recognize, God has continually provided, even though I've not been the best of children, the best of followers. But Jacob had been delivered by God at Bethel, and he never forgot it. All the years of sinning, All the years of selfishness had driven a wedge between him and not just his fellowship with God, but even his fellowship with his family. But those relationships were still there, especially the one with God. God was not yet ready to give up on Jacob. We can't always find perfect comparisons or analogies between the Old Testament and the New Testament when it comes to spiritual experiences, but I think here we can see enough to make a comparison. At Bethel, God delivered Jacob from fear. He delivered him from distress. And then at Calvary, he paid the price to deliver us from the fear of sin and the distress of guilt. We need to come back to our initial experience sometimes, often, to find that renewed grace for living and the strength that we need to continue serving. It's easy in this world, if we're not careful, to let Satan beat the daylights out of us. Sometimes we forget that we were warned that Satan seeks to and fro whom he may devour. When Satan appeared with the angels before God, and God basically asked him, "What have you been up to?" He didn't say, "I've been hanging out in hell doing this or that." He said, "I've been going to and fro in the earth." So for us to picture the devil right now in hell, that's not where he is. One day he will be. But he's very busy at work. And he's looking for children of God, people who have chinks in their armor, people who have weaknesses, so that he might somehow expose those weaknesses and cause them to stumble and to fall. We need to remember that that's a real battle. And the third lesson I think we see here is that to really enjoy the happiness or the blessedness that Jesus speaks of in his Sermon on the Mount that goes along with the Christian life, sin must be put away. Even though we're saved from the guilt of our iniquity, our sin, by Jesus' atoning sacrifice at Calvary, the influence of worldliness is a constant threat to every believer. How much Jacob was personally influenced by Laban's gods, and we really don't know, but his family seemed to have picked up the habit of idol worship. They picked up their pagan gods. They had their idols and their fetishes. Maybe Jacob didn't personally participate in that, but his influence apparently wasn't strong enough to keep his family from dabbling in idol worship and worshiping pagan gods. And I just got to thinking about that as I was kind of finalizing the lesson. How often is that truth the same for us? Our lives aren't maybe as terrible as they are just empty or shallow. There's not enough spirituality at times in our homes to lead our children to faith in Christ. And we need to go back to our Bethel experience and find fresh motivation, maybe renew our commitments. God had given Jacob a new name at the brook Jabbok, and he renewed this truth here at Bethel, expecting Jacob's life to take new direction. I really think that maybe in each of our lives there are times that we also need those Bethel experiences. We need to go back. We need to remember what God has delivered us from, and the zeal, the fervor, the passion that we had to serve him, to share our faith then. What happened to that passion? What direction would our life take if we genuinely returned to that eagerness and that desire to serve Christ that we had the day we were saved. Maybe we need to spend some time by ourselves to kind of inventory our lives. Inventory where we are now compared to the fire that we had then, and reaffirm our commitment to serve Him. That's a lesson. A little bit short tonight, but hopefully you all have some thoughts and things you'd like to add.